Mr. Lamb is still on duty, so if you are in the audience and you want to ask a question, please come up to the mic and speak into the mic a little closer, especially you, Tyler. You're fine. I know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the thing and just hold it up there for you. Or I'm going to give you this mic, one of the two. I might just do this. Anyway, we'll let you go.
Thank you. Good evening, Perry. I think everybody in the county, or everybody who cares to pay attention to politics in the county, knows why the incumbent Sole Commissioner decided not to run as a Republican. She felt like the party had moved too far to the right. We tried to keep the party open to a lot of different ideologies and people with lots of different ideas about how to move the county forward and what the best way to do that is. So my question is kind of two parts. It's not two questions, but it's, first of all, why didn't you run as a Republican? And second, what contrasts you with our Republican candidates and the incumbent Sole Commissioner?
I chose not to run as a Republican for a few reasons. I am very much a constitutionalist. I believe in the rule of law that the Founding Fathers set up. I have paid attention to politics within the nation and even within this county. And I have become unhappy with the way that the parties are being ran. The parties, in my opinion, are taking candidates that they feel or that are vetted to and putting them up on the block, saying, here's our Republican. And along with that, there are compromises that are made. And if I lose this race, I will keep my integrity. And I just felt that by running as a Republican, there were things that I would have to give up of myself that I was not willing to. What makes me different is I look at this county and I don't see Republican. I don't see Democrat. I don't see independents. I see citizens of Walker County. I see people that are struggling every day. I've struggled myself. Anyone who's read my bio knows that I haven't had it easy. I've had to struggle my way all the way through life. What makes me different is that I understand, and I will tell you I understand, and I mean it, that I know what it's like to have to fight to put food on the table, to go to a job and not know if you're going to lose that job. I see too many of our candidates, and this goes back to the first part, that I see candidates that have not had the type of life that 90% of the people in this county have had. A difficult life, one of struggle. And I feel that to best represent everybody in this county, I need to do it as an independent. I am not doing it as a chess match, as a strategy. I'm doing it because that is the way I feel. That I want to be the voice of everybody else, and I want every single person in this county to have a voice in how our government is ran.
Go ahead.
A lot of times when government corruption, they have a outside audit to audit the auditors, and a lot of times criminal malfeasance is found. If that's the case with you, would you call for jail time?
If I, and I will, have an audit done of the books, I think everybody needs to be held accountable for what they do. I've had to be held accountable for things that I've done in my life, personally, at work. Whoever has made decisions for this county, made them on good faith because we, the voters, put those people in office. There will be an audit. And whatever that audit, whatever is found out in that audit will be turned over to the state. And it will be made public. I will not do anything behind closed doors. There will be transparency. I do not believe that government should say, I'm going to do this because it's best for you. It is the citizens of this county to tell me what is best for them. And it is my job to do what is best for them and what their voice has dictated for me to do. I'm not the dictator. This is not a power thing. But yes, if there is wrongdoing found in the books, then whoever has chose to lead that life or run the numbers, whatever, they have to face, their own judgment.
I read, this is a stat, I did some research. In 2014, our millage rate in Walker County was 4.765. In 2015, the property taxes was raised to 8.725. Just a stat. I'm not saying for any particular candidate, but I don't vote in Walker County, but I pay Walker County taxes, and that's a huge step. Go ahead.
Concerning the type of commission that we'll have, as commissioner, would you strongly support keeping the sole commissioner or convert to a multi-commission?
I will tell you exactly how I feel, because I'm not going to calculate, well, am I going to lose this vote or am I going to lose that vote? I have, and I always have, supported a board of commissioners. When you put one person in power, it's a dictatorship. Absolute power corrupts absolute. There needs to be checks and balances. That is the way our founding fathers set up our government, for everybody to be able to have a voice into what gets done, not one person telling people what needs to be done. That is what I would choose. It is up to the people of this county to vote. And whatever they vote, I will abide by. I don't want the power. I think the power has been abused from a sole commissioner. What type of board would I like? I still think that you need a manager, a county executive, to oversee districts, district commissioners. When I sit down and, I do some figuring and I look at this and I look at these numbers, I feel you could probably have a fairly functional board with 4 and 1 executive that only got to vote or only could vote if there was a tie. Some people have said 7, 5, but 5 with or without. There are different ways. What I would do personally, if that is what the people voted, if they said we want a multiple board, I would go to many counties that are successful, and those would be my role models. That is how I will do things. I will make sure that history has shown that it has worked somewhere. And that is the way I will approach a problem or the board.
Are there more questions for Mr. Lamb? Okay, we're going to go to Mr. Shannon Whitfield. Mr. Whitfield, if you were elected sole commissioner, what forms of communication would you use to communicate with the Walker County citizens, and how would you communicate those things to them?
Okay, there's several things that's in my plan. Number one of the only jobs that I would be creating is a public relations communication director, for lack of terms. That term may get massaged into some different title. But we need a person on staff that their total focus is to communicate both internally and externally. And a person that handles the social media, handles the press releases, handles anything of request. If a citizen needs an open records request, I'm going to have a 6-month moratorium on charging people for those requests. So a communications person would be responsible for meeting with that person that's looking for that information, because a lot of times citizens don't know exactly what to ask for. They just know what they're looking for, or they're trailing something, but they don't know exactly the documents to ask for. So we're not going to play this cat and mouse game of, well, we know what you're looking for, but you just didn't say it the right way. We want a person that can say, here, let me help you, because especially early on, going in the first month, people are going to be wanting information that we probably need to know, because they're probably onto something, they've heard something, they've overseen some other conversation, and they're onto something that we want to be aware of. So it's very essential to be successful to have that communication person. Second, I will be setting up an advisory board that will represent all the citizens of each community. So we'll have multiple zones that will have a person that will be in each of those areas that will meet with me on a monthly basis to start with. And if we can work through our agenda, maybe try to get that to a bi-monthly basis, where those people coming to this meeting are a sounding board. They will tell me what they're hearing on the street, what you're calling into communicating to them. So we definitely want to have those people in the community, because Villanelle is much different from Rossville. Rossville's much different from Lookout Mountain. They're different communities. They're made up differently. And so every area is not going to have the same needs. And so we've got to have a board of people that's an advisory board, that's volunteers, that's willing to give it their time to come in and have input. And also, we want to use them as a sounding board. So if we have an idea, or we have something that we want to move forward with, we'll show it to that group first, get their input, get their collaboration, and make sure that we're on the right track. There's strength in numbers. We need that collaboration. We need that feedback, so we know that we're making the right decisions before we go public with it. We'll have that board that can give us that input.
You kind of took my second question, but I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit. If you were sole commissioner, would you implement a civilian board to handle issues involving the sheriff and other departments that need to be addressed for complaints against Walker County employees and other issues? Like I said, you kind of
When you say a civilian board to handle complaints, I don't even, you're talking about they would have jurisdiction of?
No, I'm saying like if there was an issue, say I was a sheriff's deputy, okay, and I did something and I offended somebody in the county, and he wants to file a complaint with the commissioner because he's not getting anywhere with the sheriff's office. Would you have people that would be able to talk with this person and talk with the sheriff's department and try to work this issue out? So like someone like you're talking about, as far as someone to represent like Villanelle, if there's an issue, would that be the type of thing you're looking at, or would that come straight to?
Honestly, that's not anything that I've been approached with or given much thought to, but that may be something that could be brought into this advisory group. So we'd have to study and look at that, and maybe if there's other communities around that have done something similar where we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, if there's something that we can learn and implement, it may be something that has some value. We just have to see.
Okay, thank you. One more. what you plan to do with the industrial parks that are on here on Highway 27 that aren't full, and we put a bunch of money into and that type of thing?
Well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to get our county government house in order, so to speak. And it's going to be hard to get any new business to speak of, industrial, retail, or all in between, interested in coming to Chickamauga, but coming to Walker County because they see from the outside the problems that we have that we've not addressed. And so the first thing we've got to do before we can really actively go out and look for industry to come in, we've got to get our affairs in our house and get our budget and get our act together, because there's not the leadership that this county needs in place currently. There seems to be a lot of dysfunction, a lot of mismanagement, and it's hard to go and sell something that you're not convinced is fully functional yourself. And so we've got to get everything in the light. We've got to pull back the curtains and put the light on everything and expose everything that's going wrong. Walker County's probably going to have a couple of black eyes, so to speak, for a period of time, because we're probably going to find some things that's going to surprise us all that's been going on. So we've got to expose those things so we can work on them. But if we don't expose everything that's going on, open up the books, open up the records, not charge people for open records requests, then in 6 months, they're going to think we covered it up. And I'm not going to sign up for that. So I want to get everything exposed, get it out in the open so we all know where we stand, have some public meetings where we can have some dialogue of discussion, look at those solutions, get our house in order so we can move forward as a community.
Tyler. I want to make sure everybody hears you, because you're an important part of this, and we thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Can you really hear me? Real quick, just on what the last thing is that you said there, Shannon. Obviously, you're talking about getting the house in order. You mentioned mismanagement. What's you as the most glaring example of mismanagement that's going on right now?
Probably the thing that frustrates me the most is our county landfill. The last audit shows that the landfill lost a little over $654,000 in 1 year. When I talk to other community leaders in other counties, their landfills are profit centers, as they're supposed to be. In governmental accounting, a landfill has its own separate balance sheet and income statement, and a landfill should make money. Our landfill in Walker County has lost an average of over $500,000 for the last 15 years. And so when you start looking at why this is happening, you know, we're importing construction and demolition garbage into our county, and we're not making any money off of it versus the expenses that are being shown. So we've got an operational deficit. So what they're having to do in the county to offset that $654,000, they're having to take property tax money and put into that balance sheet, into that operation to offset those losses. So in essence, what is happening is we're taking our property tax money to offset the savings that these waste haulers from Tennessee and Alabama are coming in and filling up our landfill, that they are taking and getting such a great rate, they can afford to bring that waste out of Tennessee and other areas and save money, where they're putting that burden on the back of the taxpayers. The other thing is our Mountain Cove Farms. Last audit that's published, it lost over $925,000 in 1 year. That's just mind-boggling to me that one single operation can have that type of operational loss in 1 year. So between those two, you're looking at about $1.5 million that should be able to be cleaned up and fixed, at least get headed on the right direction. But in particular, probably the most glaring is definitely going to be the landfill.
On the landfill, how do you plan to fix it?
Well, one thing, officially the landfill's only open 5 days a week. Technically, publicly, it's closed on Wednesday as an example. But these out-of-town waste haulers have the combination to the gate. And so they're able to come in with these large rollback trucks, unlock the gate themselves, and on the honor system, they weigh themselves, dump their load, come back out on the honor system, and weigh their trucks. And so just one example, we've got to go in and change the locks, so to speak. You know, if we get new locks, and we're probably going to have to go in and revamp the management staff, because there's been such a long period of time that it's been accepted in this county that our landfill lose money. I come from the business sector. I don't like things that lose money. That operation is designed to make money. Let's face it, we've got the only landfill in the county. They're importing garbage to us. We ought to be able to take money every single year out of that operation and put into our general fund to offset our overhead in our general fund. And so that operation is broke. All the way around, it's broke. We've got to get in there, learn from the best. We need to go see these other counties that are making $600,000 and $700,000 a year off their landfill and say, help us, show us what you're doing, learn from the experts, and come back and implement.
Okay, and one last question real quick.
I only get one more?
How many more do you want?
Lay it on.
Just real quick, because Crystal won't let me keep going, but, obviously I think you've taken a little bit of heat because you donated some money to BB's campaign in 2012, and what you said on your website is that at the time you just weren't paying close enough attention to the critics. You should have listened to the critics. Of course, the roots of a lot of the problems that people are bringing up here tonight, whether it's Hutchison debt, Mountain Cove Farms, the landfill, those obviously existed in 2012. If you failed to read the tea leaves back then, why should voters believe that you're going to be able to synthesize problems and read the tea leaves going forward?
Well, what happened in that time period is we were focused on running our own business. We've had a very successful business for the last 40 years, very active in the community, very active raising my family. And so I didn't feel like, as a citizen, that I had to go do an open records request, get the financial audit, and check up on my government. I thought the state was checking up and monitoring the county government. Obviously, the state has failed us in that area. They've sat back on the sideline and they have allowed this SPLOST money to be misappropriated. There's a letter in the 2014 audit that the commissioner wrote July the 24th of 2015 on her letterhead with her signature, sent it to the state, admitted that they misappropriated SPLOST funds, stated in there they were going to leverage a mill property tax through the Development Authority and put the money back. Well, folks, from what I can tell, that money's not been put back. They say there's no road money. There was $9.1 million in the SPLOST account when they did the bond for roads. But back specifically to your question, there wasn't the transparency, so I didn't think I had to go dig. So we're in business. Any customer that comes to us, and everybody here knows the county's done business with our company for generations. They come to us and they're going to have a golf tournament for Ms. Haskell, and they're putting pressure, let's just call it what it is, they put pressure on their vendors to donate to those golf events. So the donations that we made, or contributions that we made, were for her golf events that we sponsored. We sent 4 people and played in the golf tournament. I don't play golf, so I never went. But we did do that. I knew before I ever started running for office that I'd have to be answered and held accountable for that. It was probably one of the biggest business mistakes we've made, because that was probably the worst investment that we've ever made in the history of our company, was giving money. And we learned a valuable lesson from that. Anytime going forward that we give money out of our business to a political candidate, we're going to do our homework. So that was a learning experience. But again, we didn't think we had to go and say, well, before we can give you a donation to play in your golf tournament, that we've got to go check your audit. And by the way, we're willing to go wait 72 hours and do an open records request and pay you for that audit. But since then, I have gone back and have spent hours and days going through the last 15 years worth of audits, detailed, page by page. Some of them range between 95 to 100 pages apiece. I probably understand the finances and the audits probably better than anyone in this county. And so I'm going to make up for those donations that we made, and I'm going to turn this county around.
One last thing, I can't let this go.
Oh, yeah, give me some more.
You said that they put pressure on you. Who puts pressure on businesses, and how do they apply pressure?
Well, they come by and say, hey, you're one of our largest vendors, and we're having this golf tournament, and, we're looking to our vendors to support the re-election of the current commissioner. Pretty much that simple.
Who's they?
The re-election committee for Ms. Haskell.
Thank you. Okay. It works, he used it because he was called.
Rod Swanson. Clarification on your advisory committee.
Yes.
It sounds like you're in favor of a multiple commissioner program, or are you in favor of a single commissioner and the others reporting to you?
Well, first of all, it's going to be on the ballot as an opinion. Everybody gets to vote on it. I don't control that process. As you know, it's a legislative process. Bottom line is, January 1 of 2017, somebody's got to take office. Someone has got to be able to go in and start addressing the problems day one. And so we don't have the luxury as a sole commissioner to sit back and say, well, do we want this form of government, that form of government, or when is this going to happen, or are legislators going to get on board? It's going to be a 2 to 4 year process at the very fastest from what I've been told by the experts. And so day one, we've got to go in and get down to business and start the repairs to this county. So I can get that done much faster with a citizens advisory board to find out what's going on in their community, to save me the time from going to Rossville, going to Villanelle, going to these different places, trying to gather information. If I can bring the information to me, we can move much faster and make sure that we're making the right decisions by having that advisory board. As far as a sole commissioner or multi-board, it has not been a part of my platform because I don't have a real say as a sole commissioner or a candidate to change the form of government one way or the other. So I have purposely left that out of my platform because I wanted to focus on the things that a sole commissioner could have an impact on and could change as being the sole commissioner. And changing the form of government is just not one of those. And so that's the process of the people voting on that form of government. Then it takes time to implement that. So I wanted to not let that be the focus of my campaign. Let others deal with that if they choose. But this community will decide what form of government they want, and that's what we need to get on with. And I'm tickled to death that it's on the ballot because I'm tired of people saying it ought to be one way or the other. I think it's time for people to vote. But if I was going to put that as part of my platform, I might as well have put casinos and marijuana in there as well, because I can't affect either one of those either. But hey, if we're going to have a platform, might as well throw it in there.
Thank you very much.
And I'm not for either one of those, by the way. But that's just as far as the power of being able to change something. The sole commissioner or a multi-board commission cannot influence marijuana or casinos, and we don't need either one of them.
Chattooga County, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Chattooga County, I'm from Chattooga County, and
So you're from Chattooga County, right?
yes, sir.
Okay.
We've also looked into a multi-board system. It's a little extra cost involved, but with that, you don't have a dictator running up big bills. And plus, you have to find more than one good person in the county to run. Sole commissioner, you only have to find one good person. Walker County looks like they're gifted with 3 good candidates here. 3 out of 4 is pretty good. Thank you.
Well, to your point, I think in part of this decision process, cost should not be the deciding factor. Either way. It should not be the deciding factor to stay sole commissioner because it's less expensive, and it should not be the deciding factor to go multi-board because it costs more. To me, when you're trying to figure out your best form of government, that's the last thing you need to figure out, because if you've got the best form of government, then ultimately everything's going to work out. But either form of government has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. And when you put them out on a paper and you kind of chart that and look at it, those strengths and weaknesses are pretty equal. Okay, it doesn't, when I look at it, and this is something I've spent a lot of time on because I knew this was going to be a big part of this campaign, even though it wasn't on my platform. I knew these questions were going to come, so I've studied this quite a bit. It's pretty equal, pros and cons both way, but they're about an arm's length apart. Okay, and so neither one of them is going to be perfect. So even if this county decides to change form of government, I think everybody needs to be prepared it's going to be like a bad divorce, because we're going to have a lot of growing pains of change, which change is not always bad, but we still got the same problems, and now we've got multiple people trying to figure out what those solutions are to these big problems. And so it's going to be like a bad divorce, because you still got to deal with the ex-partner and you still got kids involved. It's a bad divorce. Either way you look at it, if you're going from a multi-board to a sole, which has happened some in this state, either way you go, it's a bad divorce. But sometimes that may, sometimes you got to go through a divorce to get to the better part. But the thing that we've got to look at is who is the best person to start January 1, 2017. To me, this election is not about what form of government. What will take both of these top platforms, either a sole or multi-board, and levels the playing field across the board is transparency and accountability. And that's what I'm running on, is a transparency and accountability, and that's why I want a communications director to get things out there every day, make getting open records not a problem, have meetings in the evening, get the information to the people, and if somebody's asking the question, it needs to be answered and needs to give them data until they're satisfied with the answer. They may not agree with it, but get them the information. So go in day one and create the transparency and the accountability, have the meetings in the evening, and we'll be off to a good start.
Good evening, Shannon. The question that's coming later, which is why are you a better Republican nominee, or would be a better Republican nominee than your opponent? But before you answer that question, you've been attacked on social media, and this is kind of a follow-up to something that Tyler asked earlier, not only for donating to the high school campaign, but your company does business with the county.
Yeah.
And is the provider of services to the county.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to your critics about that being any kind of potential conflict of interest, or being a conflict of interest, and the other criticisms that you have on social media? You're often criticized for not answering questions that are asked to you. And what would you say to those critics who are criticizing you for not answering questions?
Okay, let me take that kind of in reverse order. The core reason, and maybe I've not put this out there, but the core reason I have deliberately not answered certain questions is because I was controlling the timing of when I released information about my platform. I held a lot of information back until last Thursday night in the event that I had here, where we had this place wall to wall, had over 300 people here, had a packed house. And so it's creating that demand. People wanted to hear what my plan was, and so I wanted to get people here where I could not only tell them, but show them in a PowerPoint, have time for questions and have time for answers. So I deliberately held back and controlled the pace and controlled the movement of the data. So that was done on purpose. I'm not afraid to answer any question. As far as this county doing business with Whitfield Oil Company, it goes back multiple years. It goes all the way back, all the way to several other administrations. There's several reasons why the county has continued to buy product from us over these years. Number one, we've got some ego involved. Let's just call it what it is. Whitfield Oil Company has an ego. We don't want to see our competitor across the street from us delivering to our county government. So how do we offset that? We take and we sell them at the lowest possible margin that we can to make sure nobody can beat our price. So when they go out shopping for bids, then we've got the best price. When Ms. Haskell found out that I was running for commissioner, what'd she do? She puts it all out for bid. What'd she find out? We still had the best price. So they continue to buy from us even after even after I put my campaign out there, had my kickoff event, and told them that I was running because I was saving the county money, okay? So we make sure that we give them the lowest cost of goods. Yeah, it looks like a lot of money, and some of my critics, as you call them, I think it's a good word, have taken and they've done open records requests, and they've put it out there, and they say, oh, this year they bought $1 million, and this year they bought this amount, and this amount. But we deliver them the lowest cost of goods of anybody, and we had to pay for that product to get it there. And also, this county's in such bad shape that a lot of times when they would pay us, it would be a net 10-day invoice. It would be 60, 70 days before we got paid. So we, all of a sudden, end up with one of our highest credit risk customers being our county government. Since the first of the year, they started getting pressure due to the social media comments and all, so they started having us provide them a bid once a week, just like they would do other vendors. We provided a bid every single week. What'd they find out? We still had the lowest price. So they said, we want to bid 3 times a week. We started bidding that business 3 times a week. What happened? Our competitor got tired of getting beat, so they got in and bought 2 loads from Parman Energy out of Chattanooga because they had a better price. That's free open market. That took a lot of pressure off me to see that Parman truck over there, because then it doesn't look like that I'm controlling the whole situation, because I'm probably BB's worst, well, anyway. She doesn't want me running because she knows I know how to run a business. And so, therefore, she doesn't really want to have to buy product from me. But let me tell y'all what happened about 4 weeks ago. All transport loads of fuel is net 10-day billing. They bought 2 loads from Parman Energy out of Chattanooga. They called for that 3rd load. Parman cut them off. The county had not paid their bill. They said, we're not bringing you more product. They sent one of their lower-level people over to my office and said, hey, can you help us out? We're out of product. And so I sit back and I go, you're out of product? What happened to your load from Parman? They've cut us off. We didn't pay the bill. So what I did, I directed my operations man to find them a load of fuel. After he come back in my office and we got this worked out, and I showed the guy from the county that not only did they owe Parman for loads, they owed me for a load prior to that. And he said, why did you do this? Why did you get them a load of product? Because they got a cheaper price somewhere else. I said, because it was the right thing to do. My dad taught me many years ago in business that being right is not always the right thing to do. But I didn't want to have to lay my head down on the pillow that night and worry about a major fire, a police incident, a high-speed chase, or the transit system being shut down, and Grandma's already out of her prescription blood pressure medicine, the transit bus doesn't run the next day, she doesn't get her prescription refilled, and Grandma has a stroke. So I rolled the dice to do the right thing. So being a candidate to run for commissioner and selling the county fuel, they're getting bids 3 times a week. If that's something y'all want to do some open records request on, go get the copies of the bids and see if they're buying from the lowest vendor or not. That's their decision. We give them a price by email. It's sent to Jeff Long 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week, and we've been doing it for several weeks now. They can buy wherever they want to. We've never had a contract with the county or any other government system or any of our customers that they're locked in to buy fuel or gas or any other products from us. They have free will. If I'm successful and become the commissioner of this county, I will do whatever state law mandates that I do to not have any conflicts of interest. I've not read the statute or the code. I've been focused on the election and focused on the here and now, but the county is such a small percentage of our gross profit that if the county business went away today, because we've already looked at this, I'm a numbers person, we've already studied this, it would have such a minimal impact on us that I wouldn't lose any sleep. So if they stop buying today, it's not a problem. It looks like a lot of dollars, but we're talking about we're making pennies, okay? We're talking not even a dime. We're talking pennies per gallon of margin. It's a commodity.
Okay.
And you had one more question, though, something about why was I the best candidate? Can I answer that?
Yes, sir.
There's only one thing that I'm an expert at, and that's my opinion. So I'm going to give you my opinion why I think I'm the best candidate. I think I've got the most business background and business experience of anyone that's running, and this county has got to be ran as much as possible like a business. We've got to have a lean operation. We've got to lean up our county government. We've got a lot of waste. And everywhere you look, this government has gotten very lax and very complacent. We've got a county attorney that's making $125,000 a year, has a full-time secretary, that's outsourcing work to Stuart James and other attorneys around the area that's not doing the work himself. There's all types of waste. You hear about lean manufacturing. We need to start hearing and seeing lean government. The departments are not operating and thinking lean because that's a problem from leadership. So I have that experience. I'm used to looking at big numbers and solving big problems and running large operations, and I feel like that I've got the most ability and experience from a CEO perspective, and in essence, that's what it gets down to when you're looking at a sole commissioner. That sole commissioner is the CEO, for lack of terms, of the county. I've got the most experience in business in solving those problems to get us out of the ditch.
Okay. I'm going to give one question to each candidate. You'll have exactly 2 minutes, period. And at that, because I need to give enough time so everybody has a closing statement. Mr. Thomas, you're elected state senator. How will you help Walker County get their library system back to full-time, Monday through Friday, where these kids can go read, have stories told, and we can go out there and get books? How will you do that?
I understand the need for a library. I tell you, when I was the mayor of Tryon, we had those budget discussions and talks quite often because a library isn't a fund-making project. You do not make money with a library. It's going to absorb money, but you just got to allocate money through the budgets to allow funding for libraries because they are a needed commodity for the exact same reasons for which you stated. And you just have to go into legislature, allocate money and budget funds for a library to be able to keep it afloat.
Okay. Mr. Pearson, we have mental health issues every day. Mental health issues are everybody's life, everybody's family life. We're going to pretend you went to jail as an inmate and you have mental issues. This present sheriff's department doesn't have any access or doctors or whatever to deal with mental health issues because you're not acting like the other inmates because you have some issues. How will you implement a program for the sheriff's department so they can deal with inmates that have mental health issues?
Well, the sheriff department would be Steve Wilson's responsibility.
That's correct. But as commissioner, you could suggest and you could help him find programs, right?
Mental issues.
Schizophrenia.
That's not my expertise.
Okay.
I mean, mental issues. We got hospitals, we got doctors, but Sheriff Wilson, I'm sure, addresses those issues. But that's far from construction and development as you can get, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Lamb, how will you as sole commissioner go to improve the Lafayette Airport?
The Lafayette Airport, you know, I work with a bunch of surgeons that actually use the airport. Improving it is going to have to be done by, you know, finding the people that have made money on airports. I myself know a lot about flying, or this is what I know about flying. I can't do it, and the cost of what it's costing to run that is not something that we should be paying for. If we can make a profit on it, this is how I feel on everything in this and the government that as it stands now. If we can make money, okay, we can keep it. But if we're losing money on anything, then we need to give it to private business. We have got companies in this county that have plenty of money to throw all over the place. Why don't they throw it instead of on special projects for their friends, or, you know, why don't they use it for the whole county? There's businessmen that know how to make the money. Our government is not in the business to make money. our government should not be run as a business because businesses make money. We should be running as lean as we can to save as much money as we can, not to turn a profit, but to spend as little as possible. So as far as answering for the airport, I'm going to have to look at the numbers, but more importantly, I'm going to get someone with the knowledge that can look at those numbers and see if it's a money-making venture or if we're losing money on it.
Okay. Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Last question. Are you for term limits on the commissioner's position? Why or why not?
I think term limits for any elected office would be a good thing. The challenge that we've got to implement term limits is we would have to open up our county charter. And in order to do that, you've got to send that charter back to the state legislation. And when you do that, from experience that we've seen in Chickamauga and Fort Oglethorpe, that legislative body and that government has the ability and the right to alter and change that charter to their liking. So you may be going to change your charter to put in term limits, and maybe you've got a unanimous vote of citizens that want term limits, and everybody sees that it's something that's good. But when you take that charter and you give it to the state and you unlock it, they have full reins to change anything they want to change. And Fort Oglethorpe had a similar situation where they reworked and redid their charter, and they all agreed on that charter. It come back different. Chickamauga did the same thing. We had a unanimous vote, no dissension, 100%. We sent the new charter with the changes we wanted to Atlanta. It come back with influence and changes from Atlanta. They didn't even call and tell us or ask us. They didn't say these are some things we're looking at or considering. They just sent it back with the governor's signature on it and says, here's your new charter. So it's something that if and when we ever open up that charter, that's probably something that we need to do at that time. But until then, we probably need to let that lie because the state's going to take and have their way.
Okay.
Do we get to answer the other three questions?
No.
Okay.
No, it was just one apiece.
I had some good answers. That's okay.
Mr. Thomas, closing remarks, 2.5 minutes.
Chris, first off, thank you. Appreciate you having this and having us here. And to these other three men that are up here, this is a difficult task, to sit up here and to face constituents and answer questions. You have no idea what's going to be asked before you. I know I'm an educator and an old basketball coach, and before games, I study films and I prepare, and I feel like I go on the court ready for a game. I sit up here before you today, and I have no clue what some of your questions are going to be. And you were very intelligent in asking your questions, and I really do appreciate that. And I look forward to the future to doing a better job of answering your questions, to being more informed and more prepared to answer your questions. But I am here for you. I am up here, and I am prepared to answer questions for you. I am prepared to go to Atlanta and to serve you in the 53rd District. If you'll look on the table he has for my name back there, I don't have any material back there for you. I don't have anybody that has funded my campaign that I need to answer for. The only people I need to answer for are the people of the 53rd District. That is you. That's the people. And one thing that hasn't been asked of me that I'm somewhat surprised is if elected, what would I do in Walker County about the election? This non-binding election for a board. Am I in favor of a board or am I in favor of sole commission? Because, I also live in Chattooga County. We have a sole commissioner. But I'll go ahead and answer that question that hadn't even been presented to me. I've talked to people before I've come on board here, and I've talked to the others here up here. I'm prepared to do whatever this non-binding election says to do. And I hope it is not a 50-50 toss-up. I hope it goes one way or the other. And if it goes toward a board, then I'm ready to get on that day one if elected and pursue that. But as it was mentioned, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not an easy task. There's going to be a lot of ways and means of going about this. And one of them would be meetings such as this to find out what the community here wants. How do you want to handle this? And what area do you want to approach this? And that, excuse me, I'm out of water. Can I get?
Yes, sir.
Since he's not here. Thank you. But I'm here for you, as I said, and ready to answer your questions. Thank you.
Mr. Perry.
Our county's lost its vision. The vision for the people. There's been a vision in this county, but it's not been for the taxpayer. Our taxes have been raised 85%. We have no standard in our county. We have a huge debt. We have no standard in our county. Mr. Roden has started over in Rossville some group of meetings that folks are wanting to stand up with a standard in our county. Nobody's going to want to come into our county if we don't even have any respect for our own properties. The properties that are being left abandoned, run down, are devaluating the properties that are next to them, where people, hardworking people, are putting their money into these properties and hoping to get good appraisals for these properties. We can't get those appraisals when we're looking at junk everywhere we look. We've got to have some kind of common decency. Catoosa County's getting the job done. They're proposing to close 3 trailer parks this year if they don't come into in compliance. There's fines and fees that follow people that don't hold a standard. I know some folks can't afford it, and I know there's complicated, it's more complicated than just said. And I know that property owners have to be contacted, and some of them are out of town, and but with all the obstacles, mountains are made for climbing. You start somewhere. For heaven's sakes, Walker County, we got to start somewhere. Let's clean up the county. These folks, it will bring revenue to the county for the fines and the fees. Let's open up our properties to be a resource to the property owners so that their properties are worth something. And then when the surveyor comes out and he approaches the property, he gets paid. When the construction man comes out and starts his project, he gets paid. When the county comes out, they get paid. It's called growth. We need growth. And when the numbers are right, the businesses will come.
Mr. Lamb.
Again, I want to thank Mr. Clanton for having this tonight. I also want to thank the people of this county for showing up and to listen to us talk about the issues. I know these issues are important to y'all. You know, for too many years, the people in this county have not had a voice. They've had no control over the direction of this county. It's time for a commissioner that will give that back to the people. I believe in the principles of the Constitution and the rule of law that our government should be run by. And in our county, in our country, that's not the way our government is being run anymore. In order to start the process of bringing this county back to financial stability, it's time for the people to vote for a commissioner that's not going to sit behind a desk and let their friends and their family or their business acquaintances control the direction. I like an old term that someone used one time. They said, you know, you're a road commissioner. You know, used to that was probably what they only were in control of, but I like it as the term of where my office would be. I feel like I need to be a road commissioner. I need to be out there connecting with the people of the county, watching the departments, working with the departments. I don't need to sit in an office and dictate, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. I need to be out there getting dirty and finding out what's not working right and figure out a way to make it work right. I'll work with every department. I'll find the ways to save money. I'll use that money to pay our debt. Until we pay our debt, there is not any industry that is going to look at us and think that we are a viable county and want to come in here. And none of this is a simple fix. Everything is going to take some time, but we can start from somewhere. We can start by learning how to save as much money as possible, be as efficient as we can, and quit giving our bids out to friends or business acquaintances or people that donated to our campaign. I research, I look, I know what I can find, who controls this county, and if the people in this county will just look, they will see who controls this county. And if that's what you want, then the people of this county are going to have very few people that are dictating what is done in this county. And the majority of the people in this county are going to get left behind. I've personally talked with
Mr. Whitfield.
I want to thank everyone that's participated and been involved in this tonight. I think this has been a very successful event, and everyone's been very professional, and everyone's listened very attentively. One thing I do want to address and talk about real quickly is the question about the library. That's one of the things that is on my platform, is to give more funding to our county libraries. And I got involved in the library boards about 6 or 7 years ago, and when I was asked to serve on that, they said, well, you know, you're a numbers guy, we need someone to help us with the budgets and things. And so I thought, okay, libraries are dead, libraries are out of date, libraries are dysfunctional, nobody uses them. That was my going in thought process. Boy, was I surprised. I was shocked. When I started looking at the statistical data and saw how much these libraries are used, and looked at the number of books that are checked out, Lafayette's running about 54 books an hour for every hour that library is open year-round. That's the average. They have some days that they spike over 300 a day. It's incredible. Rossville Library, Chickamauga Library is in the mid-20s. Yes, a lot of people do go and use the libraries for the internet use and for the other services and benefits that they offer. But our libraries are part of the building blocks and part of the foundation of this community. Our libraries will be more properly funded under my administration. Also, as far as the airport, to my understanding, the airport is owned and operated and controlled by the city of Lafayette. So the county government is not going to get involved in the Lafayette City Airport under my administration, from everything I understand and know at this time. We have got some major problems in our county. It mostly stems around financial, it stems around transparency, and again, I give you my commitment here tonight that day one, we're going to shine the light on everything. We may end up in the media, it may make us all look bad, we may look like the Hazard County comment that was made earlier, we may look like a bunch of messed up, backwards people, but that's okay. We'll take those black eyes because black eyes do heal, but we've got to get it all out on the table. We've got to expose everything that's going on. I give you my commitment here that I will expose everything. It was brought up earlier about an audit. I've looked at this quite a bit. The audits that we're having done now in the county cost over $70,000 a year for the audit that's being done.
I'm sorry.
Want to
Mr.
get like a 1 minute extension?
That means I have to give everybody else 1 minute.
Y'all want another minute?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. A forensic audit would cost over $500,000 plus to have done. If we get in there day one with the financial team that I've already got in place, that's going in as volunteers that are leaders and successful people from this community, if we see things that the GBI needs to be called in for, we will call them in, let them do the audit on their dime. Thank you.
We can't, my grandfather said, you can't gripe unless you vote. So vote.